guys. So now I'm going to talk about Universe 6. I think this is one of my more favorite universes because it's more useful in other leaders. I'm going to structure this discussion where the first part of it is I'm going to talk about the not so great cards being the first one, and then the potential good cards, and then it's MVP, and then it's other supports. That's the first part. The second part I'm going to talk about. What am I going to talk about? The second part. Oh, I'm gonna talk about the leaders that can use the Universe 6 cards the best, um, and then other Saiyan leaders that could use the Universe 6 cards, and then the honorable mention. I think there's only one in the honorable mention um, for unconventional strategies that I came across. That's part two. And then part three, I want to talk about the pros and cons of the leader Kale and the leader Caulifla. Um, I think there's more to exploring into these two leaders as Universe 6 users. But, there might be, but I think I've outlined most of it already. And then on part four of this discussion, I'm actually going to show you a deck I made for Kale just to see if you guys like it or not. All right, so let's go back to part one. So, part one, the first card I want to talk about is the not so great part of Universe 6 was Frost, the tactician. Um, I find that there's really no need for Frost in any deck. Uh, he basically is a two-cost card, and you get to search for any Frost that can evolve on top of him. I think you could search for a lower one too, but I've looked at all the Frostes, and they're not that particularly outstanding. They're too expensive to play, or their evolve cost is too high. So I don't see Frost being used in tournament power, but hopefully I'm proven wrong on that one. Frost is Frieza's universal counterpart, so it's kind of cool. But his effects are kind of like subpar. The other one that wasn't so great was the Vanilla Caulifla, the one that was just 10k. She's like whatever. There's not much to say about her. She is a one cost 10k, so it reminds me of Slasher Chunks when Galactic Battle first came out. And then the other card that was not so great was a Universe 6 combination Magneta. This is the one where when you play him, all your one cost 10k, or yeah, your one or less energy cost gain a plus 10k, or is it plus 10? Yeah, plus 10. So they become like the five cost become 15k. Bulma becomes 11. I didn't really feel that that was very useful. I mean, I guess you can like somehow, if you can somehow push Magneta into the board early, but he's not that great. So yeah, that was the three not so great cards of Universe 6. The potential cards that I found, which is part two or part subsection two, or Dimension Leaper. This is a card that was kind of interesting to me because at first I just thought, well, this can only be used in Universe 6 leaders, but I forgot that there's an old card that came out of Galactic Battle called Lightning Facet, where you evolve on top of a any hit, and then it does two damage. So Dimension Leaper, he could like go to the warp even after he attacks. So that's something I missed. So you can attack with Dimension Leaper, and then after that you can send him to the warp. So you're inflicting damage. You're trying to inflict damage with him, and then if you really want to protect him, because before a lot of people would just play on turn 7, you would play hit, and then you evolve right on top of him for 5. So that's exactly 7 mana. But now you can like set up a hit where he's kind of like safe from being attacked. So that has potential in being used for like hit combo decks where you can like burn indirect damage slowly. Um, so I see hit potential in him, but I'm not too sure you can use them in like conventional strategies and stuff. The second card is Time Kicker. It's the extra card that just negates an attack and then chooses the attacking battle card and then send it to the warp, and it comes back on the turn. So if you look at it, it is kind of like it reminds me of Whisk Coercion, where it negates the attack. But the pro of Whisk Coercion is that it untaps the same mana or a different mana or a different energy, so you can keep using Coercion. That's the pro of him. The con of him is if you're dealing with like multiple, like a card that attacks like two times, for game, that might not be such a good idea because then you burn a card to stop one attack. With Time Kicker, you can you can stop dual or triple attackers. So like the SR Hope of the Universe 7 Son Goku, which is the Ultra Instinct Goku, it has a triple attack. So um, if you had like three coercions, you would have to use three coercions to stop that from like burning out your hand. Even on top of that, his auto triggers to discard a card from your hand or take a battle card off the board. So it's better to have Time Kicker in this scenario where if you're about to be attacked down into by Hope of the Future or Hope of the Universe 7, you could just Time Kick it and then it wouldn't attack you anymore. You would lose two cards total because Hope of Universe 7 would take out a card off either your battle area or your card, and you would lose Time Kicker. But that's fine. You also stifle the new SCR um, Ultra Instinct Goku that X evolves on top of Hope of Universe 7. So it stifles that strategy too in case they have it. Because they wouldn't be able to evolve it since that Goku is gone for the duration of the turn. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, and then the third card was that had potential in my eyes was a Universe 6 combination Batamo. He's the one where you combo. If you combo with him, he costs one to combo. Um, all the universe, um, all the Universe 6 gain a +5 attack. So if you imagine a scenario where your opponent uses Sensu Bean to go from 15 to 20, suddenly all your attackers become kind of like stopped in a way to where it becomes kind of like discouraging to attack. So I think there's potential in that one. So you combo with Batamo, his combo will give 5k to the attacker, and then on top of that he gives 5k again to all the Universe 6. So he gives a +10. So he's like you're basically comboing a 10k from your hand that normally is like a vanilla 10k because it costs one. So one costs 10k uh, combo card, but it also gives +5 to all the other Universe 6. So that might be useful. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't built a deck yet. This is merely me discussing into it. So that was the potential. Now let's talk about the MVP. MVP is definitely, in my eyes, is Bold Super Saiyan 2 Caulifla. Mainly because the combo is you can play Teamwork Kaba, which only costs two greens, and then you can have the potential to play any Caulifla off the 10 cards that you get off of scrying top 10 and play her onto the board. So Bold Super Saiyan 2 Caulifla is a 4 cost Caulifla, which means by turn 2 you're playing a 4 cost card, and on top of that, if that's not enticing to you guys, when Caulifla comes into play using Kava, you look at the top 7, and then you play any 15k or lower Universe 6 card and put it in play. So off of that one Teamwork Kava, you're getting two other cards. So you're getting a +2 on turn 2. And it's not just a +2 that goes to your hand, it's a +2 that goes onto the board, which means you never have to pay the mana cost to play them. So I definitely think Bold Super Saiyan 2 Caulifla is a way better, the best, I think, the MVP of the Universe 6. And the second one is definitely Foreseeing Hit. He's that SR that was announced where if you do play him, it doesn't even have to be any sort of Universe 6 requirement. He's very generic. All you need is two reds, and you get to look at your opponent's hand. And not only that, you choose two cards and you send it to the warp until the end of their next turn. So, what does this mean? This means that if you're trying to go for game or you want knowledge to how much your opponent can combo, you simply just take out all the super combos out of their hand, and you know exactly what they have, how many 5Ks, how many 10K shields they have, and what they can actually do in order to stop you. So, Foreseeing Hit is definitely going to be seen in the meta. I didn't think so at first when I first read it. I was like, oh, whatever, it just takes two cards. They'll just get it back anyways. But if you eliminate your opponent's opportunity to kill you, which sometimes they do, like I'm sure certain times there are combo cards or that are required for certain turns, and if a well placed or a well timed Foreseeing Hit comes onto the board, you look at their hand and then you just take out their combo pieces so that you can't die in the next turn, or you could die, but it's less likely chance that you can die. So you just take out the threats, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it the next turn. It's basically like, even in the art of war, it's best to know your opponent as much as possible. So if you see their hand, you basically know what's going to happen, the best they can do with your interpretations. So definitely the other MVP of the Universe 6 cards. And then the other MVP is number 3 is Sister Attack Super Saiyan Kale. I have like a fascination with cards that when you do attack, you draw a card. And Kale is definitely one of the cheaper options. She's only 2 costs, and then not only is she 2 costs, but she only requires 1 red, and she comes into play using Bold Super Saiyan Caulifla. So the combo I mentioned earlier, where you play Kaba, Teamwork Kaba, into Bold Super Saiyan, right, and then you play Kale, which is the sister attack, right. So that's 3 cards, and then when she attacks, Bold Super Saiyan 2 Caulifla is a Universe 6 card. So when this attacks, she requires this to be on the board. She draws a card, so that gives you a card into your hand. So that means your one Teamwork Kaba is netting you a +3 on turn 2, which is really good, and it swarms the board really easily. So those are the MVPs. Other supports I want to talk about is Bewitching God Vados. She's one of those alien support cards. Whenever she attacks, you put any alien that's on from the top 2 of your deck and puts it in play. So there's a lot of aliens in this deck. So you can go like, I guess, if you haven't gotten it already, turn 5 you attack, possibly so you get a Vados, and you attack, you get Teamwork Kaba into Bold into Kale, and then Kale into a draw card, right? So that one Vados gives you a +4, no, +3, right? And that's only for 1 attack. So if Vados attacks again, right? If you get another Teamwork Kaba into another Bowl, that's what this is off of one Vados, right? So 1 Vados gets you 6 cards. So if you really need to come back in a game, Vados might be a huge contender. She is a little bit of a later drop. I mean, she's a 5 cost, but I don't see that being much of a hindrance in this game. The game is a little bit more slower than before, but if what I'm saying is true, that you can do some swarming capabilities on turn 2, it might be a faster meta. We'll see. Depends on how much gets picked up. Okay. The other supports are like Scheming Champa, which gives a +5 to any red aliens, which is like whatever. I guess if you have like a lot of copies of Scheming Champas, but this is kind of like a faster meta, and it outpaces Champa. It's if you want to make a budget deck or something. The other one is Calm Heart Vados. It looks at the top 3 for red alien, and you add it to your hand. So if you're playing Universe 6 cards, they're mostly all aliens, so you add them all to your hand anyways. The other one is Fearless Pan. So if you're swarming correctly with red cards, Fearless Pan will give them all double strike and then +5. And on top of that, Fearless Pan is it's a barrier blocker. So in case your aggression doesn't go through, you have a blocker to stop one attack. And the other one is Unending Night Awakening, which is the Sensu Being Negate card. You can use this with the Universe 6 leaders, which is Caulifla and Kale. And then the last one is Universe 7 Super Saiyan Vegeta, which is the SR that was announced. He basically makes it so that when he does come to play, you make anything triple strike and then +10 after it attacks. So if it's rested, you just attack again. So that can make sure. So you can choose like cards like Super Saiyan Kale Sister Attack. So once she attacks, you draw a card, and then she gains that +5 for the duration of the turn. And then if you play Vegeta to restand her and attack again, that's +5 twice from her double attack, and then the +10 from Vegeta. So that's what, 20,000 plus triple strike. So it would be a 30k Kale that draws you 2 cards, which is kind of impressive. But that's assuming if Kale survives until the next turn, which is probably not going to happen as much. So the opportunity cost is pretty high for the Universe 7 Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta. Okay, so that ends the first part of this video. I'm going to move on to the second part of the video where I discuss about leaders that can use the Universe 6 cards the best. So stay tuned. Okay, so this is the second segment. This is the part where I talk about like other Universe 6 cards that could like work well with other leaders. So I want to talk about the Red Saiyan leaders. There's quite a few actually outside of Caulifla and Kale. There's six other ones. So the first one was Saiyan Bon Vegeta. That's one of them. The second one is Majin Vegeta. Vegeto, the red one. Four would be Soul Unleashed Goku, the defense one, and then the other one is Pan, and then the last one is Rising Spirit. It's basically the GT Son Goku. So out of all those leaders, I think the best one outside of Kale and Caulifla to use Universe 6 the best is Saiyan Bomb Vegeta, which is the card that when a Saiyan from Universe 6 or 7 attacks, you draw a card. So it's kind of like a watered down Pan leader. It's great for like I guess for team tournaments if you already have a teammate who uses Pan. I know that I'm in that scenario, so I have to figure out another leader that can stand up to the meta that isn't the leaders that my teammates have already chosen. So yeah, so Saiyan Bomb Vegeta is definitely another one. A cool play you can do with Saiyan Bomb Vegeta is that you can play Kaba, Mediator of Universe 6. He's a 5k, so you can pay 1 mana and hopefully get a Universe 6 off the top 3. So it'd be a +1. And then when you attack with that Kaba, you draw a card with the Vegeta ability. And the great thing about it is that when he does attack, he's only 5k, so your opponent isn't really taking a life from attacking your leader. So what does this mean? So you net a +2 by attacking with Kaba, and on top of that, they don't want you plussing every turn with a 5k attacker. So they're gonna try to kill your Kaba next turn. So that ends up being like a inherent negate for your opponent to not attack you until on the next turn. So they'll try to kill your Kaba Mediator of Universe 6, which is kind of cool. If that's what your strategy is to play the long game, I tend to think long term game rather than short term game. So if anybody can tune in and correct me on why that's a bad strategy for the short game because their mind is set on short term strategies, then go for it. I'm more than happy to hear criticisms about it. The other leaders I didn't really feel that could use the Universe 6 the best, except for Pan. Maybe Pan, because Pan would draw a card every time you play you. But there would be some sort of what would be the best? There'd be a conflict of interest with Pan because when you play Pan, you basically would have to give 5k to the first thing that comes onto the board. So if you're playing this Teamwork Kaba, he wouldn't become a 20k, so you can't really draw a card. So Pan being a Red Saiyan and everything, even though she's a great Red Saiyan, I feel like there'd be a conflict of interest. So you would have to build your deck differently to accommodate for the Universe 6 Swarm package. That's what I'm gonna call it from now on, the Swarm package, the Universe 6 Swarm package. Um, yeah, and then the other leaders that, so Universe 6 has some sort of, I guess, a loyalty to Red Saiyan leaders. So you wouldn't be able to use Impeccable Super Saiyan Kaba or Union Attack Batamo and Magneta, which is the super combo, and then the Impeccable is the Kaba. So the first one, the Impeccable, relies on having a Super Saiyan, a red Super Saiyan, or a red Saiyan leader in order to gain a +5 on the attack. And then the other one is Union Attack Batamo is obviously a Universe 6 battle. It's a Universe 6 leader support. So you would only be able to use it with Caulifla and Kale, unfortunately. And that's just a shame because you can look for Union Attack Batamo and Magneta using Mediator or Vados, the Bewitching God Vados, or Calm Heart. There's like so many ways you can search for that super combo, or scry it off the top of the deck. So the last thing is probably going to be the honorable mention. So my honorable mention leader is that can use the Universe 6 pretty well is Captain Ginyu, only because you can Shugesh the Teamwork Kaba and do that little the Swarm package. So you can do the Swarm package with Shugesh. I'll show an example of it later on Untap. I'll film a little bit of Untap and see what I mean by being able to use Captain Ginyu as a swarm strategy with control um, for interaction purposes. So yeah, that talks about that's all for I wanted to say for the other leaders that can use the Universe 6 package. So thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for this third segment, which is the pros and cons of Kale and Caulifla. I think that's going to be a very important decision making when you decide to purchase Tournament of Power. So stay tuned. Hey guys, so this is part three of the Universal 6 review. This is where I talk about the pros and cons of Caulifla and the pros and cons of Kale. So let's get started. So Caulifla, her pro is that she could swarm very well. Both Kale and Caulifla could swarm the board with the swarm package, but Caulifla, she can self awaken. That's one of the thing about her that makes her that's a pro, one of her pros. She can also pump up all the cards that you do swarm with +5, and then she could like take away time from your opponent. If you're swarming that fast and you are pumping up your dudes to +5 for each one, I think you can probably end the game pretty quickly. And the fact that she can self awaken too is a huge thing because she's really meant for the short game. She's not meant for the long game. So that's one of her cons. She runs out of steam because she trades her life to pump up your battle cards, um, and then so you're often low in life. So you're definitely over reliant on using um, your first 3 turns, maybe 4 turns to get your opponent down really low, so that when they start losing cards or they just lose the board control, they automatically lose. So you typically use cards like Double Shot Vegeta because it's only a 1 cost card you can play on your opponent's turn, and then it would be able to be part of the cards that rush your opponent down. Um, but I typically stay away from leaders that are aggressive. I typically play leaders that are long term, which is why I like Kale a little better. You can use Dauntless Kale. Dauntless Kale is whenever you have a Caulifla on board or the leader area, you can play her for free. So if you have multiple Dauntless Kales, you can play her. But I don't see how you can use that as part of your aggressive strategy. So I would stay away from Dauntless Kale if you plan on using aggressive strategies. A very good card that you could probably use is Strategy of the Universe 7. You can use that to give all your guys barrier, but even though it is a 0 cost card, I don't see it being used very much because if you do decide to attack with everybody, they're still going to be vulnerable to a regular attack as opposed to barrier. But I guess that's just backup in case there's like mass AoE from Hidden Awakening Kale to kill all your guys. So I guess that's like an insurance policy to know that to give all your guys barrier so that it doesn't die to effects. So a con would be, yeah. So that's all the pros and cons of Caulifla. So let's talk about Kale. I think Kale's a little better. She has the ability to draw on Awaken. That's what I like about her. But I wouldn't recommend attacking so much with Kale on Awaken because she's more like a discard draw. It's like a very pacey strategy where um, she does both Awaken. When she's Awakened, if you have a Caulifla on board and she attacks, your opponent has to discard one, and and then she gets to draw one for her regular attack, and she also draws two. Actually, she doesn't draw two, but Caulifla does. So that's one of the pros over Caulifla over Kale is that when Caulifla does Awaken, she draws two as opposed to Kale. So I guess that they do different things, which is kind of cool. So we're going back to Kale. Um, I think she's better for the long game. That's her pro. She can grind out very well. And like I mentioned earlier in all my video, you want to have a card that does both. Um, take away cards from your opponent and then add over to your overall card. But I wouldn't recommend rushing your opponent down with Kale because she doesn't really rush well. She kind of like plays the long game. And she's better than Broly because she doesn't have to attack the leader to trigger her discard ability. So that has the competitive edge over Broly. Plus, Kale is a red card or a red Saiyan, so there's like so many support for red Saiyans that I feel like it's unavoidable to play. It's unavoidable to play Broly over Kale, in my opinion. Um, so those are all the. I wouldn't recommend, like I said before, I wouldn't recommend attacking so much with Kale into their leader to draw a card on Awaken. I would focus on building a board first, and then when you're ready to Awaken, start like mutilating their hand slowly. One of her con though is that she doesn't really affect the board very much. She discards and then she draws. So if they already have like a board out, like if you're playing the mirror match where they've already swarmed using the Universe 6 swarm package, it's kind of hard for them to. It's kind of hard for you to stop the overwhelming board presence. So I think what Bandai did was they printed out the SR Relentless Kale, which is if you evolve in top of a Kale, all 25k or lower battle cards are sent to the drop area. So except for your Caulifla and herself. So I guess with if you're using the Unstoppable Ambition Super Saiyan Caulifla, her ability states that if you do not, you can't, all your cards can be put into the drop area, except by your own skill. So there's synergy with the Relentless Kale and Unstoppable Ambition Caulifla. So there's the combo that you can do with those two. You can also use Hidden Awakening as well to clear out the board, but the best AoE I guess would be Hidden Awakening and the Relentless Kale if you do plan on playing the long term game with Kale. I think that's all pretty much I wanted to say about those two leaders in terms of pros and cons. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed the segment.
What's up, guys? So I'm gonna do a new segment. This segment is basically showing you and outlining how I can maximize the hand control of Kale. I'm just gonna basically go through turn by turn to see what I can do to maximize each of these cards. So most of my decks, I don't know about you guys, but I've never built a deck where I mulligan a certain way going first or second. I typically mulligan the same way going first or second. I'm sure there's like a very obscure skill set to mulligan cards going first or second. But most of my decks, I guess, to my knowledge, flows the same way whether I'm going first or second. So I typically mull the same amount. So this deck has about, I believe, 16 or 12, I can't remember, green cards. So a lot of the green cards I do include in this deck require 2 greens in their deck. So like if you look at Teamwork Saiyan Kappa, it requires me to have 2 greens, regardless of whether or not I like it. So that means the first 2 turns of my first 2 turns of my games I have to charge 2 greens. Reason being why I play Saiyan Kappa, as I mentioned before, is that when you do play him onto the field, you get to get any Caulifla. This means I'm able to get any Caulifla in my deck regardless of the cost of the Caulifla. So what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? That means that if I do play Teamwork Kaba on turn 2, which only requires me to have 2 greens, I can essentially fish out for this one, which is a Caulifla. And then with her ability, I get to look at the top 7 cards for anything that's from Universe 6. And then if it's 15k or lower, I get to put in play. So there's synergy with this deck. With only 2 greens, I have seen fields where I can play this guy. Look at the top 7, right? But for the sake of realisticness, I'm just gonna put this onto the field. So let's say I get this, and then I bring it out her. That means that I get a total of 3 cards. So let's assume that. Sorry, this is not gonna be realistic. Let's look at the top 10 cards. Okay, so let's assume that I have 2 energies, 2 green energies out. I'll get the top 10. Okay, that means I can get this Caulifla, or I can search for Kale. I mean, my whole deck is basically I'm able to scry the entire thing. But ideally, you want to get bold Super Saiyan. So pre-mulligan, you want to have this. Make sure that this is back into the deck, because there's no way you can play her on turn 4 until turn 4. So she'd be a dead card until then. So let's just put her back and pretend I mulligan her away. And I want to keep 2 greens so that when I do have enough, by turn 2, I'll be able to play him. So I'll keep that. I tend to not keep my super combos, so I also mulligan that away. And in some scenarios, well, I wouldn't be able to play him anyways because I want my first 2 turns to be 2 greens. So keeping this in my hand would be kind of useless, right? So then I would put him back too as well, right? So I'm trying to what I'm fishing for now, because this is my hand after the mulligan, is for any other card. I think I run. No, I don't run anything else. I think I run Dauntless Kale, which is the free blocker in this deck. So I'm gonna shuffle my deck. Hopefully, I draw into her. So I'm gonna draw 6. 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So it doesn't look like I drew it, and I drew her again. That's fine. So I'm gonna go by turn. So first turn. Let's assuming if I'm going first, I'm gonna charge a. I wanted to charge the green energies because I want to bring him out as soon as possible. First, let me lay out the life so I can lay out a more realistic scenario. Okay, cool. So I have my 8 life. So assuming I'm going first, I want to charge a green, right? So I want to keep Caulifla because in case I have another play, I can just bring her out for only 1 green because he reduces Caulifla down to 1. She's also free if I have 2 Caulifla. So if I draw another green, I'd rather charge him first over her. So it makes sense. So I'll charge this first, and then I'll invert it. Okay. And since I'm going first, I don't want to attack with Kale. I know a lot of people, if you do decide to play a leader, that when you do attack a leader and draw a card, you want to attack as quickly as possible. But since I'm playing Kale, as I mentioned before, she's more of like a grind leader. So it's best not to attack right away. And besides, most of my advantage is being generated from Kappa. So I know it's enticing to attack first, but by doing so, by attacking the leader, you're allowing them to awaken faster and then getting more cards out the life. So you want to make sure you're playing the grind game, not the quick game. Again, with Kale. All right, so I usually pass, and then let's say I'm playing like I don't know, SSJ3, right? So they get 2 energies. Not sure if I can miss them. I want to untap, so when I play against myself, I have to play the mirror match. I think I can alter that, but that doesn't matter. Assume they don't attack either, so they keep my 8 life, so I draw. Right, so then now I have another red, but obviously I want to charge this. So I was hoping to draw a green run right here, because if I did draw a green, I could just charge it instead of her. But since I don't have any other option, I will have to charge her. So let's see how well the magic works here. So now I'm gonna play Kaba. Let's see how much of a plus he is. So I'm tapping these 2 out, and then I'm gonna look at the top 10. Yep, cool. So this was part of my 10 cards. So I typically want to play her. Alright, so put that away, shuffle away. And then with her ability, I look at the top 7 when she comes into play. This is a lot of value in this deck. So you put 7. Okay, and then I can put any 15 Carol or Universe 7. So here's the combo. Cool. I either can take a life to awaken earlier, but I typically don't want to awaken earlier just yet. I kind of want to have her because she's kind of like ability Unleash Gohan, where every turn if she doesn't die, I do get to draw a card. So how much is this netting me? So let's look at it this way. So now that I'm able to attack, since it's no longer the first turn of the game, right? So I started this turn with 5 cards in my hand, right? So now I have a total of 4 and 7. Okay, but this is before the attack. So at this point, I have like a formidable board, right? So if I do attack with Kale, right? Let's say I'm attacking the leader, I get to draw a card, right? And on top of that, when I do attack with Kale again, right, assuming that I want to, right, I can draw another card. So this means that at the start of my turn 2, I have 1, 2, 3 plus 6 cards, right? So on my second turn, my mere second turn, the Universe 6 cards are able to do this very fluidly. The reason why I say is Universe 6 can only do this is because actually there's no hindrance. So you can actually play this strategy with any other leader, which is kind of cool. I think the only downside is that I can't play this, and I can't play I can't play this in most of my deck. So it looks like this strategy can be used in almost any deck as long as I play Universe 6 cards, except for my leader. So now I have what, 9 cards. In any other deck, I would have just had what, the Kale and then these 4 cards. I mean the Kaba and these 4 cards. I would only have 4 cards. And but not only do I have not have 4 cards, I have 9 cards, and 3 of them have to be on the board, right? So I put pressure on my opponent, right? If they keep her alive, I can keep drawing cards every turn. So that's a problem, right? So the problem now is mana efficiency. So it's very efficient on mana, but now I have less defense, which is why I always play like 5Ks. Yeah, they're very fitting, so I can play a lot of 5Ks in my deck. So I just want to show you that example of what I can do with Kaba. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, I'm gonna start my next turn. So assuming at this point they take advantage of the time killing Kale, which I'll probably let her die. So let's say I let her die. Okay, so let's say she that means she absorbs an attack. Okay, so let's say I'm still at 8 life. So I tap, I draw. So cool, I drew another Kaba. That's crazy. Alright, so now at this point I don't have to charge another green card. I can charge a red card. And this because it's important to start charging your red card after turn 2. Because if you do play cards like this that requires 2 reds, especially for seeing hit, I'm required to have 2 reds. So I'm going to start charging a red card. And since I can't play this now, and I want to play him instead, I'm going to start charging him. Okay, so let's see if I get lucky again. So I'm going to try to play another Kaba this turn. Just to show you an example. Okay, and look at the top 10 again. Look at that. So many options. If I want to awaken earlier, if I want to play her, it's like I'm probably going to play her again. It's exactly the same scenario, except I'm not playing bold. Oh, wait, no. Sorry, this is Kaba. This is not Caulifla. So I think it would be best to get Caulifla. Yeah, Caulifla. Shuffle. So now I can take a life. So before this turn started, I had what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 cards in my hand. So I had like a total of what, 9 cards at the end of my last turn, and now I have 10 cards. And this is before I attack with Kale, right? So assuming I attack with Kale, it gives me another card. So this deck has like a lot of like pluses, and I leave an energy on tap. So if you can imagine, this was instead a Caulifla, right? I would be able to pump all these guys by 5k just by having Caulifla on board. But she plays the long game better, and Caulifla plays the short game better. So yeah, that's my demonstration for what, 3 turns of my my game. Look how much cards I have. It's ridiculous. You guys remember when I talked about the honorable mentions? Well, this is one of them. I'm envisioning a scenario where we can use Universe 6 battle cards. And, well, I believe I can do this. So let's say I do decide to attack right here. And then I have nothing. I have no cards at all. Right, I have 2 mana open. This is only on turn 2. Assuming, because I think Captain Ginyu is the easiest one to allow me to awaken earlier, to where I'm at 4 and at 2 mana, with the help of my opponent, obviously attacking me. So I think Captain Ginyu is probably the best yellow leader for this scenario anyways. So let's say I attack and I draw a card. Okay. Sorry, I didn't draw that card. I set this up wrong. But let's say I draw a card. Let's just pretend I drew a card, okay? So then let's say I go Shugesh, and then I can bring out Kaba, right? This is without using any mana at all, and then I can probably play the top card, right? Because we already know what it is. Okay, so I get Caulifla off of Kaba, and then I'm gonna shuffle. Okay, and then I look at the top 7 again, and then play another card. So I'm probably gonna play her. Okay. So then I attack. Let's assuming I shuffled, draw a card. Okay. So actually, let's say I drew 2 from our. Yeah, I drew 1 for Captain Ginyu and I drew 1 for Kale, right? So at the beginning of my turn, I started with, I believe it was 1, 2. I think I had 7 at start. So I basically start with the same amount of cards, and on top of that, I get my engine started. So this allows me to play control very well, because control is reliant on me being able to have open mana on my next turn, so I can use cards like this to defend myself and draw a card, and I have Cold Bloodlust with a yellow energy open, right? So this is a scenario that I envision when I think that Captain Ginyu deserves an honorable mention. So hope you guys enjoyed that one.